I've been teaching in the Bible school since maybe 1990. So I'm pretty old now. Some say it's the new 50s, new 40s. Okay, but for me, my passion is to teach the Word of God and to equip God's people. And so I really love teaching. And I'm glad that I'm here tonight to share with you something that is that actually started off as a course assignment, you know. So it was an assignment I had to do for a class, but later it became my my dissertation, which I worked on it for 6 years, and literally day and night, you know, I worked full time on it for 6 years. And so what I'm sharing with you tonight on biblical hospitality is based on my research. So these are just what I've gleaned from the Bible regarding hospitality. Okay, so my plan is to spend from now maybe up to 10-15 to go through what I have. And I also want you all to participate. And so there'll be breakout rooms for you to discuss how you can actually practice biblical hospitality. So think of ways, practical ways you can practice. And then maybe after I finish, maybe, you know, if you still have questions, feel free to ask me. Okay. I mean, I heard from Han Hui that his Q&A can last till midnight. I've never gone through such situations before. So usually my class ends on time and no one asks questions. Probably I'm such a good teacher. No one has questions to ask, or what I teach is so profound that they cannot even think of questions to ask. Okay, but feel free to ask when even as I share, you may ask, although then I may not be able to finish what I want to say. So, but anyway, feel free to ask questions if you need to. Okay, so when we look at this word hospitality, okay, what actually comes into your mind? What's the first thing that comes into your mind? Don't delete even the word biblical hospitality, you know, biblical outfit. So when we talk about hospitality, what comes into your mind? Okay, maybe if you just put in chat some of you can put in chat what comes to your mind when you see the word hospitality. Anyone? No one? Making someone feel welcome and at home. Yes, hotel. Okay. Being watchful for someone's needs. Yeah, good. Any more? Service. Yes. Okay. You know, I tell you a joke, you know, someone said that hospitality is to make one feel at home, but yet wish that they were. Do you understand the joke? So you are making them feel at home, but you actually wish that they were at their own home, you know? Okay, good. Being generous, intentionality. These are good ideas, okay? So basically, most people, when they talk about hospitality, you always think of the hospitality industry. You think of travel, you think of hotel, you think of restaurants, and even good services. Okay. So, and then some I don't think anyone talked about meal. When we talk about hospitality, actually we cannot leave out food and beverages. Is a big part of hospitality. And food is an important component. I'm not sure about you, but when I visit my relatives, I'm often greeted by this question: have you eaten? Do you have that experience? Or maybe you're too young. But for me, for my generation, when I visit my aunties, uncles, the first thing they'll ask me is, have you eaten? Apparently, this is a custom that has been passed down through the ages, because long ago, when people had to travel to, a long distance just to visit their friends and relatives, And the host, concerned that the guests did not have a proper meal while they, make that journey, would often greet the guests with this question, have you eaten? Out of concern. However, I believe that this is not just a Chinese custom, since I'm a Chinese, this is just a Chinese custom. But I think that in many cultures, this is something that is quite important. So, and I think that generally Asians are very hospitable by nature or because of our culture. But do you know that the God we serve, is also someone who practices hospitality? Okay. He actually invites us to come, eat. This image of God as the divine host actually can be found throughout the Bible, from the beginning to the end. Okay. In the first book of the Bible, Genesis, we actually see God showing his divine hospitality to his created guests. First, he prepared his house, which was the newly created universe, to welcome his first guests. And then he also invited his guests to eat freely from any tree of the garden. But of course, there was a tree that they were not supposed to touch, and that was the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Okay, so this also shows us that hospitality has limits. Okay, and in the last book of the Bible, Revelation, again we see God as the divine host. Believers will eat of the tree of life. There's also the marriage supper of the Lamb, and then the Spirit and the bride invite those who are thirsty to come and drink of the water of life. So from the first page to the last page of the Bible, we see God inviting us to come and eat. We see him as someone who practices hospitality. Okay, so if the God we serve is someone who practices hospitality, then surely we, his children, should do likewise, right? So tonight, I'd like to explore this idea that we need to create a hospitable space to nurture an authentic community. An authentic community actually needs hospitality, the practice of hospitality, so that we can all grow together, and also at the same time, we can really do what God does, and that is show hospitality to others. So for tonight, I'll first look at 2 reasons why we should practice hospitality, and then 4 practices of hospitality. As I said, this is based on my research, and so for each practice, we do have some biblical basis for it. So I'll just briefly share the biblical basis and then go straight to how we can practice. And then you'll break out for each practice to discuss how you can actually do it in your own groups. So let us look at the 2 reasons for practicing hospitality. And first is biblical, second is emotional. Okay. Now, there are 3 verses in the Bible that actually tells us to practice hospitality. If we look at these verses, we will realize that the New Testament writers were actually writing to believers. Okay? Romans, Hebrews, and 1 Peter, they were all written to believers. And the writers were telling all believers to practice hospitality. So practicing hospitality is not an option. Okay? Not an option. We practice hospitality not because we have the gift of hospitality. Some people think that you must have the gift in order to practice hospitality. No, you cannot do that. Why? Because it's like love. We do not love because we do not have the gift of love. No such thing. Just as we have to love one another, we have to practice hospitality, because this is what the scriptures tell us to do. And secondly, the emotional reason. According to neuroscience research, the brain learns best in the context of a trusting relationship. So a hospitable space is also a safe space. It is the best environment for learning and growth because there's that trust there. So we are free to share and then free also to grow. Okay. So if we are desiring to nurture an authentic community where every believer can grow, then we need to practice hospitality. So our question then is, what is the biblical definition of hospitality and how can we actually practice hospitality? The word hospitality is, in the Greek, is philoxenia, okay? And basically, it is the love of strangers. Now, the word strangers carries the connotation that is someone I do not know. Okay, and probably, it's like, look, someone on the road, anyone on the road, anyone that I do not know. But if we study the context of the word when it's used, you've discovered that it's always about showing hospitality in the context of the Christian community. Love of strangers starts within the church, within the Christian community. Okay, it's not just loving someone you do not know. Actually, it's loving someone, your brother and sister in Christ, who is different from you, I would say, rather than you do not know. Okay, so it's loving someone, your brother and sister in Christ, who's different from you. And so from my research, I have listed 4 practices of hospitality, biblical hospitality, which is care, presence, inclusion, and reciprocity. So what I'll do is I'll go and we'll discuss the first one first, and that is care. Okay. If we look at the Cambridge online dictionary, care is defined as the process of protecting someone or something and providing what that person or thing needs. Okay, so it's about protecting and providing. And in Deuteronomy chapter 10, verses 17 to 18, okay, it talks about God, a God who is the God of gods, the Lord of lords, the great God, the mighty and awesome, who shows no partiality and accepts no bribes. And then it says that he defends the cause of the fatherless and the widow and loves the foreigner residing among them, giving them food and clothing. So based on just this verse, of course, there are many other verses, but we only have about 2 hours, so I cannot elaborate a lot. God defends, that is about protection, and God loves, giving them food and clothing, is about provision. Our God is a God who cares, and he shows his provision and his protection for us throughout the scriptures. Especially if you study the Old Testament, you study Exodus, and even the exile, you'll find that God is constantly the one who will protect and provide for his people. Now, so in very practical terms, how do we care and how do we provide? For me, first, you can only do that if you know the needs of the person. You must know the needs. Then the next question is, how do you know the needs? Well, you need to befriend them. Okay, there's one way to know what a person needs. When we become friends, we become more comfortable. We are able to share with them what is really in our hearts. We trust them, and we will confide in them our sorrows and, of course, our needs. Of course, we befriend them and we trust them until they betray us. Okay, so we befriend them. And so besides being a friend, we actually need to listen to what the other has to say. Okay. So what is the challenge for us? The challenge is all of us, I think maybe I shouldn't use the word all of us. I think for most of us, it is not easy to befriend someone. It is not easy to listen to someone. Why? Because we are from I think most of us are Asians, and so we come from a very high context culture. Okay, and in a high context culture, we communicate through non-verbal codes, and as a result, everything is very vague. Okay, because we hope that the person catches what we didn't say. Okay. So in a low context culture, probably like the Western cultures, okay, you find that communication is quite straightforward, quite direct. And so if you look at the words on the left and the blue words that move up, there are only 3 words there: words, gestures, and tone. These are how these things are what low cultures do. When they want to communicate, they communicate through their words, through their gestures, and their tone. So it's very, very straightforward. Okay, you just listen to what they say, and that's it, and how they say it, and that's it. But for us who are in a high context culture, everything is very relational. And as a result, as I said, communication is very vague, very indirect, and very implicit. So when we communicate, we actually communicate not just through our words, gestures, and tone. There's a lot of very unwritten codes that are there. First, word choice. Okay, word choice. We have to choose very carefully how we phrase our sentences. I remember when I had a very elderly pastor before, and then I didn't know, and I will tell him things like, "Pastor, I will do this," and he will always tell me no. But I have a friend who will go to him and say, "Pastor, may I do this?" And then he will always get yes. So word choice, word choice. So the words we use, we have to choose very carefully. And also in high context culture, we don't use a lot of words. Okay, we don't use a lot of words. In fact, a Japanese told his American colleague, he says that for us, for Japanese, right, we say 1 word, but we understand 10. But for Americans, you Americans, you have to say 10 words just to understand 1 word, Yeah, so sometimes in Chinese, like for me in my Chinese, in my family, right, you don't have to say much. You just say one thing, and then my parents, my sisters, they understand what I mean, So word choice. Secondly, phrasing, as I said, how you phrase it. You phrase it as a statement, or you phrase it as a request. And also history, the background of the person matters. What race is he from? I mean, I'm not racist, but in high context cultures, the educational background, his race, they all matters. Then you have posture, how you stand. If you stand with one hand on your hip and then the other hand just pointing at the other person, oh, that will be very rude. Usually you have to stand with your 2 hands in front of you and kind of bowed down slightly, your neck just tilted down slightly to just show respect. So posture is also important. The environment is important. You know, some people want you, like some people, they don't mind you saying things directly in front of everyone, but some prefer you to, you know, talk to them privately in a closed room, okay? And then social status or ranking is also important. Is he my senior or is he my junior? Is he rich or is he poor? Okay, all of these are important. Now, even though I say that Asians are from high context cultures, but for Singaporeans, we are slightly different in the sense that most of us are, we have been educated in a very westernized environment, or we grow up in a more individualistic environment. So for Singaporeans, instead of saying what context, what culture, what context do you come from, I always ask them, what context do you operate from? Okay, operate from. Because rather than what context we are from, because we are rather mixed up society, it's important to understand where you, from which context do you operate from. Okay, for example, I'm a Chinese. However, I grew up in a very Western kind of environment. My pastors were all Americans. I went to Philippines, but studied in a seminary that had almost all American lecturers. Okay. Later, when I came back and worked, I worked for an American boss. So although I'm a Chinese and Asian, but I interacted with so many Americans that I actually operate and communicate from a very low context culture. As a result, I actually get into problems with those who are from a very high context culture. And yeah, I really have bad clashes with them because I didn't understand. I didn't give respect to them. Okay. Okay. So do you know that communication is only 7% word, 38% tone or volume, and 55% non-verbal? Okay. I think when you get married or when you have a girlfriend or girlfriend, maybe boys, maybe male are not like that. You better take note that your tone counts. Your tone counts and your non-verbal actions can be read in many ways. What you say is not so important. So realize that because communication is more, subtle and non-verbal, then we have to be very careful when we listen to people. And for me, the Chinese character for listen, think, is very, very good to illustrate this point, okay? Because when we listen, we have to do what we call deep listening. Deep listening. In a deep listening, you don't just listen to what is said, the word said, but you have to listen to what is not said. What is behind what is said, okay? So for the Chinese, so you have to listen to tone and also watch our body language. And so this Chinese character embodies all that, what I'm saying. Because I don't know if you can see my cursor. Can you see my cursor? Okay. Can you see? Can?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, good. So for those who don't know Chinese, okay, this part is the year. Okay, this radical is for the year. And so when we listen, we are supposed to listen as if the person in front of us is a king. This part here, the radical here, is actually, it's actually king, Wang. And then, so we listen with our ears as if the other person were king. And for this green part, okay, this represents the eyes. And on top of it is the character for 10. So we see as if we have 10 eyes. not just two, okay? And the last part is the heart, the sing, okay, it's heart. But above it is one. So we listen with one heart, not divided heart. And so that's why deep listening is being very concentrated. It involves your attention, it involves your presence, it involves your entire being. You cannot just be listening and doing your work. No, you have to listen, look at the person, see his eyes, not just hear what he says, but see his eyes, watch how he moves, and even where he puts his hands. So it's very important for us to practice deep listening. Okay, and this is something I like to say is we all have a story. In fact, we are a story. Okay, but for Asians, we find it very hard to tell our story. It takes a long time for our stories to emerge. Okay, and this lady puts it very, very well. Okay, but our stories are caught in our throats. We need someone to listen to our stuttering, stammering plea to be heard. We need deep listening. We need good, welcoming silence. And when this attentive silence opens to me, I gather the courage to speak, to be heard, and to hear myself. Okay, I gather the courage to speak, to be heard, and to hear myself. Can you relate to that? Sometimes, you dare not speak. Sometimes you think your voice is too soft or too insignificant to be heard. We just need someone to give us that space, that welcoming space, to allow us to speak what is really in our hearts. Okay? And so we need to take time to listen someone or something into existence. Okay? It's not about listening to someone, it's listen someone into existence. Listen so that we allow the person to emerge, the self to emerge. Okay, so we need to hear people to speech, because behind their fearful silence, right, we are actually trying to find our own voices. And we're also hoping that our voices can be heard. Okay, so for us to be hospitable and to show care, we befriend the person, but more than that, we need to listen to the person. And when we listen, we need to not just hear, we need to see, and we need to feel with our heart. So, and also try to even feel and see and hear the words, even before they are spoken, if you can. Feel. So, and also when you listen, don't judge. Some of us, we listen so that we can rebut. We listen so that we can, cut the person down. No. We listen first. Don't judge. You can judge later, but listen first. Give the person a chance to speak. Okay. Now, since we are so addicted to our handphones, I'd like to share this thing with you. Okay. This is based on the research done in 2012. It shows that the mere presence of a mobile phone, even when it is not switched on, or even though it's not in use, during personal conversations, becomes a barrier to closeness, trust, and empathy. This was a research done. So I noticed that most of us, when we are with people, we take our handphones and we are looking, we are checking our WhatsApp messages or whatever, but we are really not there for the person that is before us. And sometimes we even put it on the table, even as we talk to the person or have a meal together. Just that presence of that mobile phone on that table already tells the person that who is with you that this person is not going to listen to me once the ring, he gets a notification sound or when the phone rings. Okay, so this is something we have to take note of. Okay, so I want you to, if you can, to break onto your groups and think of one way you can practice care. But of course, you can also think of, what will prevent me from practicing care. So you think of, because when you think of what prevents you from practicing care, it will also help you to derive a way that you can practice care. Okay, so just brainstorm lah. There's no right or wrong answers, and then we can come back and talk about it. Wow.
How long is this, Dave?
How long? 5 minutes.
Okay.
You can just share so that I can get a feel of whether we are on the same track. So if each okay. So if each group could just type just one way care can be practiced, okay, whatever you have. If you don't have anything, just say no time, not enough time. Okay, yeah, shut up and listen. Okay, that is one group. How about the other, another group? Yep, okay, good. So being self-absorbed, being lazy. Okay, why lazy though? It's kind of like self-control. Are you uncomfortable with silence? Like when you are talking to someone and then you come to a point where, both of you are silent. Are you uncomfortable with that?
I am.
But actually, silence is good. Okay, silence is actually good, and so don't try to fill every silence with noise. Okay, allow silence because it's not only a time for reflection, but maybe it, slowly you're giving time for the other person to speak up. So don't be afraid of silence. Okay, I better move on and be quick, be faster this time. Okay, let's talk about presence. Presence. Now, when I talk about presence, I'm talking about being fully conscious and aware in the present moment. You're very conscious and aware in the present moment. Okay, so here there's this cartoon. When you're with someone, is your mind full or are you mindful? Okay, are you like the father or are you like the daughter? So this is something I want to to bring up, and that is the idea of presence. So in the Bible, there's this account in Matthew, but actually this account is also found in Luke and in Mark. But I chose Matthew because of the word seeing that is there. Okay, so Jesus was on his way to Jairus' house to heal his sick daughter who was actually on her deathbed. And so it said that Jesus was walking in the thick of a crowd. And so Luke describes it as a large crowd followed and almost crushed him. Can you imagine? The crowd almost crushed him. And in Mark, it said that the crowd pressed around him, leaving little room for movement. So it's like going to Chinatown just before Chinese New Year, before COVID-19. You literally get pushed by the crowd, when you go to Chinatown to just soak in the Chinese New Year spirit, okay? Now, so when Jesus was walking, when Jesus was walking, there was this woman who had a bleeding problem, and she was suffering for 12 years now. She came behind him and touched the edge of his cloak, hoping to be healed. And so Jesus, turning and seeing her, said, "Your faith has made you well." Now, if you look at this picture, in what posture was the woman in? Was the woman in? Okay, how was she standing up? No, right? She's probably like bent down, or even on the ground, trying to touch the edge of Jesus's cloak. But it says here, Jesus turning and seeing her. So this crowd is so, he has no place to move, but yet he was able to see this woman. And there's this New Testament writer, Leon Morris. He said, so Jesus turned and saw her. He gave her his full attention. Even though there were like maybe hundreds and thousands of people there, he gave her his full attention. Now, what's the challenge for us in this practice of presence? The challenge is this immediacy. Immediacy is about communication behaviors that reduce perceived distance between people. Okay, it's about perceived distance, not actual distance, but perceived distance. And this perceived distance can be spatial or emotional. Spatial as in physical or emotional. Okay. Have you ever sat next to a person but feel that you are miles apart? Like you're sitting next to a friend, but you're feeling that he is like miles apart. That is called perceived physical distance. Or have you talked with a friend but felt like your friend is like a stranger? On the other hand, have you ever talked with a stranger and felt like you have been friends for life? And that is called perceived emotional distance. So this is what immediacy is about, okay? Now, this is a Zoom class with just one person having the video on. For me, as a teacher, right, a Zoom meeting whereby every participant switches off their cameras only creates both physical and emotional distance. I feel the great distance. I perceive distance. I feel alienated when I don't see faces that I can relate to when I teach. So switching off your camera, or your video, unless it's for very good reason, is not a very hospitable act at all, because there is this perceived distance. Okay, you are creating a perceived distance, which that means your presence is not there. Okay, so many people can sense how close we are to them through our behaviors, through what we do or do not do. And our verbal and non-verbal behaviors will actually reveal how present we are to that person. So these are some behaviors that promotes immediacy, that helps to reduce the perceived distance. Okay, when you address the person by name, instead of saying "hey," but you say "Robert," or you praise the person, you use personal examples in what you say. It's not like just telling other people's stories, but you are telling your own story. Okay, you ask questions, you use humor, you initiate discussion, and you use inclusive pronouns like we. And non-verbal touch. Okay, proximity. If you touch the person, if you stand close to the person, you have eye contact, or even the way you stand, your posture, your gesture, your facial expression, okay, your smile and tone of voice. All these are indicators, behaviors are indicators of your presence, okay? Later I'll talk about eye contact. So this lady who wrote a book called The Silent Language of Leaders, The Silent Language of Leaders. She said she did research, and then someone gave her this example. She says that my boss says things like, "You are always welcome in my office," or "You are all an important part of the team." At the same time, her nonverbal communication is constantly showing how unimportant we are to her. She never makes eye contact. She will shuffle papers when others talk. She writes email while we answer her questions, and generally does not give her full attention. Okay, so for me, if you don't show presence, you're actually very impolite. Okay. And there's another guy, John Vernier. He actually works with disabled people. And he says that, he struggles with giving people his full presence. Because when people come and knock at his office door, he will ask them to come in and talk. But he wrote, he makes it clear to them in 1,000 small ways that he's busy, that he has other things to do. So as he puts it, the door of my office is open, but the door of my heart is closed. Are we guilty of that? When people come and talk to us, instead of looking at them, we are looking at our screen. Okay, we are just still doing what we are doing, and we just tell, hey, come in, just say, tell me what you want, but we are not listening to them. That is no presence at all, even though you are there. I suppose this group comprises mostly of Gen Y and Z. I'm the boomer generation. I'm old. So multitasking must be second nature to you. I can't do multitasking, okay? I'm only good at doing one thing at one time. So multitasking may be second nature to you, but actually, since presence requires our full attention, multitasking actually causes you to lose your full presence. And it is actually a non-verbal signal that creates distance between people, okay? So now that most meetings are held virtually, I believe, because since I'm a teacher, I believe that most of the participants are doing many other things other than just listening, okay? While the meeting is going on or while the lesson is going on, you're actually listening but doing other things. As a result, when I ask a question, no one is able to answer, or they didn't hear the question at all. What did you say? So this is not practicing presence at all. Presence means that we have to give our full attention and full participation. Okay, maybe I'm just stepping on your toes right now, but this is how I feel as a teacher. Okay, so and then also when I ask questions, a lot of my students don't answer, except Robert. Robert is brave enough to answer or even ask questions. Most of them don't ask. Why? Because Asians, I think most of us feel that we don't want to look stupid in front of others. Neither do we want to look ignorant, so we better not say anything, okay? But to show our presence, we actually need to speak up. We need to speak up. We need to let others know our ideas and our opinions. Of course, you try and do it in a nice way, not in a rude way, but we do need to speak up, because we need to speak up for our convictions, and also live out our convictions, modeling and imaging God through our lives. This is an important part of presence, okay? So it's not just just being there to listen, showing care, but actually to speak up. Because when you speak up your convictions, then you will live up your convictions. If you are a silent believer, nobody knows what you believe, and then you also won't want to live up what you believe as well. You can hide. It becomes a mask that you hide. Okay. So just now I talked about high context culture. Now I want to talk about low contact culture, where we are low in immediacy, low in contact orientation, low in physical closeness. I think in most Asian cultures, except maybe the Filipino culture, most of us, we are very scared for people to come too near. We don't like people to touch us too. Okay. And also eye contact. We feel very shy if someone is looking at us and holding that eye contact for a long time. Okay, we feel very shy. And so we tend to come from this low contact culture. Okay. And COVID-19 has also disrupted the way we work and communicate. Okay. And because of this social distancing, there's online or the virtual communication is more common than face-to-face communication, which makes it worse. That's why we can hide behind our cameras in Zoom meetings. Okay, so if this is the case, right, now that we are living in such a, at a time where it's hard to show physical presence, how then can we show even presence in the virtual world? So I'm not even just talking about physical world. In the virtual world, how can you show presence? How can you show presence even like through Zoom or through your WhatsApp messages? How do you show presence? How can we be there for the other even though we cannot see each other? Okay, so these are the things that you need to consider when we talk about presence. Okay, so I want you to just discuss for how many minutes? Let me show what's my timing like. Okay, I can give you 10 minutes. 10 minutes. How can you show presence? Okay, how can you show presence in your Christian community? Okay. And not just presence physically, but presence virtually. How can you show presence? Okay.
All right.
So, right, one way you can practice each group.
Oh, you put it in the waiting room. Okay, I will copy and paste it in the main room.
Ayo.
Okay.
Me again.
So,
okay. So can each group just write one way you can practice hospitality? Practice presence. Eye contact. How long can you hold eye contact? 1 minute? And not feel shy? As long as it takes. Childhood game. What's childhood game? Is that a childhood game? 15 seconds. It's not about staring, So besides eye contact, how else can you practice this? Okay, use emotions to Okay, virtual space. I think the emo icons is very useful, I think it helps a lot to reduce the tension if there is one. But if there's misinterpretation, that is bad. Okay, don't multitask. Yes, practice active listening. Yeah, good. Okay, listening with open eyes. Not just open eyes, open ears as well. And open heart. Yeah. Okay. Participate in the conversation. Yeah, that's right. Learn to participate. Don't just all the way. The person will hate you. Okay. Okay. Just now, there is a question. So this question is, I don't know who asked, but so I'll just talk a little bit about it. So what if people find that you ask too many questions and speak too much? Okay. For me, you have to realize that all of us come from different types of cultures, and all of us have different thresholds. So some of us may feel like, for us, some people, I know I have a friend who likes to ask questions and keep asking questions. And because for that friend, to find out more, she needs to ask more questions. I'm the kind that I don't ask questions. I just wait for the person to tell me their problems. I don't ask that, hey, what problem are you having? I'll just wait till they are ready to tell me. So all of us are different. So for the one who is asking too many questions, so-called, maybe you have to be more aware of the context of the person that you're talking to, and if you feel that there is this very perceived distance, then maybe you should stop what you're doing and think how you can change your approach so that you can close that perceived distance. So maybe by your questioning, you are actually causing a distance. So by not questioning, you may actually bring that distance closer. Okay, so you may have to change your approach. As for the person who thinks that, this person is asking too many questions, maybe you think of it from another angle, and that is maybe this person needs to ask questions to know. Some people ask questions to know. So try to be more understanding. Try to be more understanding towards the person. And for me is if we learn to love one another in a godly way, and our aim of loving is to edify one another so that we can all grow in the body of Christ, then I think that we need to maybe take maybe steps back, learn how to accommodate others, accept others, and all their differences and all the quirky ways that this person is behaving. Learn how to accept them as someone who is created by God, and then learn how to negotiate. And I think at the end, there must be trust. If you trust each other, then you will know that whatever the person is doing is actually for your good and is trying to help you. Okay, but yeah. So I think I don't know if I've answered the question, but at least that's how I feel. Okay, so let's go to the next one, inclusion. And so this may be part of it. Okay, have you ever felt like the blackbird? Have you? For me, yeah, many times. I feel like that blackbird, ignored, out of place and ignored. Okay, now this is not inclusion. This is what inclusion should not be. So in our world today, we are talking about diversity and identity. It's about embracing our diversity and celebrating our identity. Now, for me, this is not, maybe put it positively. For me, these ideas are biblical concepts. The concepts of diversity and individual identity, they are biblical concepts. Why? Because The Bible teaches us that everyone is created in God's image. And on top of that, we are created as a unique individual, as in like no one thumbprint is similar, is the same as another person. Okay. However, because of that, if everyone is a unique person created by God, then we cannot see the person as being different from us, different as not normal. We are the normal and they are the abnormal people, different and abnormal. No, because we are created as unique individuals, then we need to respect the other person's differences. And we need to affirm the other person's worth and dignity. So the other person may not behave like you, but yet we must value that person as a unique individual. Okay, and if I may put it this way, every one of us is a limited edition. Every one of us is only one of a kind. And so tell yourself, I'm a limited edition. So I may be different, and the way I behave, the way I do things may be different, but we should learn to accept one another. Okay. So when I talk about inclusion, I see that Jesus has modeled this for us, especially through his dining. Okay, we can see that from the Gospels that Jesus embraces everyone and he eats with everyone at his table. If you look at this this picture, maybe it doesn't look very nice, and that's because the people there are not the normal people, so-called normal people. So you have like someone who is like quite like blind. Okay, you have someone who is like maybe colored. So these are individuals that are I wonder if I want them to be my friends, that kind of thing. But you can see Jesus eating with them. And if you look at the jar here, the jug here, you actually can see a figure, and that's supposed to be Jesus. Apparently, this painter, when he paints Jesus, he will never paint Jesus' face. He only paint his hands or his reflection. Okay, so Jesus eats with everyone, with the unholy sinners, with the dishonest tax collectors, and also with the super holy Pharisees. He eats with everyone. He models for us what inclusion means. In fact, by saving us, by dying on the cross for us, he's actually our supreme host. He welcomes strangers into his Father's house. Okay. So the challenge for us in this practice of inclusion is this problem of our position, our location. Where are you standing? When you are in a group, where are you standing? Are you standing in the middle, in the center, or are you standing away from the center at the margins? Okay, sorry. The position of at the center is a very powerful and privileged position, like this king. And when we are situated in the center of all things, like like we are the queen here, the king here, everyone listens to us, then we may forget how those at the margins feel or live. Okay. Unmute. Okay. So where are you standing? So I want to ask you, are you someone who does not need to worry how much a drink costs at Starbucks? Okay, so you can go to Starbucks anytime and it's okay for you. Okay, you are not worried about how much you will spend at Starbucks. Or are you someone who has to consider very carefully where to go for a drink? So you will not choose Starbucks, but maybe you just choose a coffee shop, okay, in your neighborhood. And are you also the one that has to consider very carefully which drink to choose because of the price, of the cost? Okay. It is actually very difficult for someone with cash, with money, to understand why the other person has to take such a long time to decide what to drink. Not because of preferences, but because of cost. Okay. So when we learn to practice hospitality and practice inclusion, we need to move away from this privilege center. Okay. So we need to practice what I call intentional marginality. Okay. It's intentional. So you must intentionally move away from the center and go to the margins to experience how the other person is feeling. We need to learn to walk in another person's shoes, in very simple words. Like you never criticize a man until you have walked a mile in his moccasins. Okay. So because when we are just standing at the center, we can never understand those at the margins. And so we need to practice or experience what it is living at the margins. Then we can understand those who are there and we will hurt them less. Okay. So if you always have like $100 in your wallet, try to live a day with just $5 in your wallet. Okay. And see how it goes. Or try walking around with crutches for a day. Or going to the mall seated in a wheelchair. Let someone wheel you in a wheelchair and you go around in a mall. Learn how it feels. I sprained my leg once and then I had to wear crutches, And when I had to wear crutches, just to walk from the car park to the lift, I'm thinking, must I walk so far? Because it's not easy, but for someone who is not on crutches, walking from the car park to the lift is like not a problem, So we need to learn how to live at the margin. And if you have no opportunity, then you make opportunity for yourself, to live at the margin, to become a stranger, okay? And so Jesus himself practiced intentional marginality. Why do I say that? He emptied himself. He was God, living in heaven, but he emptied himself by taking the form of a slave, by being born in human likeness. He became like his brothers and sisters in every respect, so that he might be a merciful and faithful high priest in the service of God to make sacrifice of atonement for the sins of the people. And because he himself was tested by what he suffered, he's able to help those who are being tested. Having tasted suffering himself, he's able to empathize with our weaknesses, our pain and suffering, since he was tempted in every way, just as we are. Read these verses later on. And you find that Jesus, he understands us. Why? Because he came to live at the margin. Okay? So we need to do that. So we must practice intentional marginality to understand those who are standing at the margins, being tall or being short, the poor, the sick, the dirty looking, the thirsty, the tired, those slow of speech, those who are financially tight, or the hungry, or the foreigner, the disabled. If you are short, right, try to live life as if you are a tall person. Let's see what are the disadvantages, or the other way around. If you are tall, learn to live life as a short man and then see how it feels, okay? Is unless we try to live our life from their position, we will never fully understand them, okay? So this is very important concept of inclusion. So now, okay, am I doing okay? Yeah, I'm doing okay. Give you 10 minutes to think about how you can practice inclusion.
All right. Breakout rooms are open.
Okay.
More or less are here.
Okay. Excuse me. So each group, please write down one way that you can practice inclusion. Yeah, putting yourselves in people's shoes. Okay. Talk to the one person being left out. Do you know that if you're talking to a group of people that do not speak the same language, it's very important for you to make sure that that no one is excluded. So let's say if we all can speak English, but one person cannot and only speaks Mandarin, then maybe someone in that group needs to translate so that they can include the person in, and even ask the person to talk in Mandarin so that and it can be interpreted for the rest who do not understand Mandarin. So always make sure that you are on the lookout for people who are being excluded or at the margins. Okay, doing things you don't usually do with them. Yes. Okay. And when you're going out to eat, try to include as many as you can. Well, now you can only include 7 other people. Okay, but try to include people. Yeah, you still have to, even you don't have the same interest, then try to find a common thing that you can share. Yeah, so always involve the person, and you can shift away from your interest to the interest of the other person. Okay. Yeah. And so I hate to say this, but for couples who are dating, right? Try not to always just eat by yourself or go out by yourself. Do schedule times that you can include others. In include others in your meal times, or just go shopping together, or just chit chat together, have tea together. Yeah, don't always try to stick just 2 of you. I know time is precious and you love each other so much, but do try to include others also. Okay, I always feel that even couples should have a wider circle of friends. Don't just have my boyfriend or just my girlfriend. Then it's very exclusive. Okay, and you're excluding a lot of people. Yeah, and also you are also losing out at the end. Okay. Okay, so let's now move to the last practice, and that is reciprocity. Okay, so let's play this Sesame Street game. Like one of these things is not like the others. Have you all played it before? One of these things just don't belong, doesn't belong. So I want you to look at some Bible verses and tell me which verse is not like the others, and which verse does not belong there. Okay, so I'm going to show you this slide. So all the verses here is based on the Greek word xenos. So can you quickly run through the verses and tell me for which verse, the meaning is really different from the rest? You can write at the chat pane. What is your answer? Romance. Okay, someone wrote romance. Anyone else? Have not finished reading or too lazy to type? No one else? Which one?
Romans 16:23, host.
Yes. Romans 23, host. If you notice, it's either stranger or foreigner, so have the same meaning. But only in Romans 16:23 is host. Gaius is a host to me, okay? So the answer is Romans 16, verse 23. And so from here, we can say that the Greek word is, I don't know if you know this word, contronym. And a contronym is a word that has two opposite meanings, meanings that contradict. So in one sense, xenos, the Greek word, it can mean stranger. That means it is almost like the idea of a guest. And it can also mean the direct opposite, which is host. Okay, I'm going to show you another set of verses here. The red ones, the words in red come from this verb, okay? The verb zenizo, but in the passive voice. And those in blue is in the active voice, okay? Active voice. So my question is, when the verb is used in the passive voice, okay, is the subject of the verb the host or the guest? Okay. Who is the host or who is the guest? Okay. So who is the one doing or receiving the action? Well, I think I'm getting too technical here. Okay, let me just say, okay, I forget about what I said. When it's used in the passive voice, right, then you'll find that Peter was hosted by Simon, or Paul was hosted by Nathan, which means that when it's used in the passive voice, then we are talking about the guest. But when it's used in the active voice, then we are talking about the host. Peter hosted, Publius hosted, and some have hosted. So it's the same verb, it's just the voice is different. So from here, again, when it's used in the active voice, is you are the host, to be the host. And when it's used in the passive voice, it means to be the guest, okay? So again here, there's this contronym here, contronym, and it means, so it's like one verb, but it can have two very different meanings, opposite meanings. And from this, from this word study here, it makes me think that the distinction between the stranger guest and the host is rather blurred. And that the roles of the host and guest can be interchangeable. Usually it's the host that gives, but the host can learn to be a guest and receive, and the guest, who is usually the one receiving, can learn to be the host, okay? Can learn to give instead. And this is the idea of what I call reciprocity or gift sharing, the sharing of gifts. I don't know about you, but when I'm a guest for too long, I feel very uncomfortable. I like to give back to the host. Like, for example, when I go to my friend's house, like in Japan, and I lived, I stay with them like for 10 days while I'm in Japan, I want to do something for them. And sometimes I'll end up sweeping the floor for them, I'll say, can I sweep your floor for you, while I'm here? Because I hate to be always on the receiving side. I also like to learn how to give. And in hospitality, we say that if a guest is a guest for too long, it disempowers the guest. The guest will feel disempowered. So we want to empower our guests and let them host us for once. So what's the challenge in this idea of reciprocity? Okay, all of us have gifts, stories to tell, and gifts to share. I believe that God has gifted us with talents and gifts that are different from others and that we can share with others. So reciprocity is about this gift sharing, but it also entails the role reversal. Okay, role reversal, where you reverse your role, as in like the guest becomes the host and the host becomes the guest. And in role reversal, the power dynamics is being transformed. Okay, for example, a teacher. A teacher is usually like the powerful one. But when the teacher sits down to listen to the student, then the teacher is receiving from the student. The student is like standing in a more privileged position. So teacher and student, now we enjoy equal dignity in the process of sharing our gifts. Okay, this is not an easy thing to do. Why? Because I have been teaching since 1990. And for many years, I did not require my students to do presentations because I considered that a waste of my time. What the students present is always not up to my standard. And so I feel like I'm wasting time. I have to spend time reteaching what the student presented. And that is very arrogant of me. But now I'm learning to be humble enough to sit and let my students teach me. And I also realized that I enjoy their presentations because they're always so creative in presenting what they have learned. So I'm learning to share and allow my students to host me instead of I being the host all the time, giving them all the time. Yeah. But role reversal is not easy because it requires us to be humble. Humility is required. Pride makes it impossible for us to practice this role reversal. Okay? We need to have poverty of mind and poverty of heart. Okay? So what do I mean by poverty of mind? When we have a mind that says, I know it all, that means we are not able to receive new insights from others. We have no inner space here to receive from anyone. And so it is like me before. I felt I could not learn from my students. I could not learn from their presentations. I was very prideful, very proud. So we need to empty our mind. We need to make space in the mind to learn from others. Okay? Then secondly, poverty of heart. A heart that is full of prejudices, worries, jealousies, it makes it difficult for us to receive the other person as a gift from God. Why? Because we will see the other person as a competitor, a rival, our enemy. Okay? So we must learn to make space in our hearts. We have to empty all these negative feelings about others so that we can make a space in our heart to receive the others. A poverty of heart actually creates community. And if we are talking about authentic community, yeah, we need to have this poverty of heart so that we can create a community that can really, really learn to receive from the other and receive the other. So it is important for us to have this poverty of mind and heart to receive the gifts of others. Okay, let me see. Yeah. Sorry. one more thing to say. The reason why we need to do that is because we will discover our gift only when someone is there to receive it. Okay, we may have a gift, but if there's no one to receive our gift, then this gift is not a gift at all, right? So if I have a present for you, but I never get to see you, I'll never give to you this present, okay? And so it says that we will never believe that we have anything to give unless there's someone who is able to receive. We will never believe that we have anything to give unless there's someone who is able to receive. So we discover our gifts in the eyes of the receiver. Okay, that's why we need to affirm the giver by receiving from them. Okay. Yeah, so here we end with the last breakout. Name one way reciprocity can be practiced. How can you practice role reversal? Okay. How can you practice the sharing of gifts? Okay, so this will be your last breakout. I have quite high expectations of my students. Okay, and that may sometimes be a bad thing. Why? Because I attended this conference and there were some Indonesians there and they were expected to lead worship in English. So when we were together and as a small group, and so the leader of the small group asked this Indonesian lady, is there anything we can pray for you? And she said, yeah, because tomorrow we have to, Indonesians have to lead the worship in English. And she says she's so frightened. She doesn't know if she has prepared enough. And for me, what this small group leader said, it has stayed with me all this time. And he said, don't worry. What you have already prepared is a gift for us, to us. What you have already prepared is already your gift for us. I found that really mind-boggling, That means of course, this group, they tried their best, but they were so afraid that what they give is not enough. Whereas this leader just said, whatever you have prepared is already a gift. So let us learn how to accept people's gifts, as be very appreciative about what people give to us. Because although that gift may not be up to your standard, but for that person, right, the person may have put in a lot of effort in it. So right now, when I read my students' term papers, all their work, I learn to appreciate. I learn not to be like so negative and say, why this person is like that? Can't he do better? But I learn to see behind the work, the hours that he sacrificed, the sleep he sacrificed, the time with his family members, his children that he sacrificed. I learned to, and then maybe the tears that he cried over this paper, I learned to appreciate every assignment as a gift from my students. Okay, yeah. So only one group, only one group shared. Paying forward. Any others? Okay, if not, then I'd like to go to the last part of it. Okay, I think you will have more time to deliberate over these 4 practices and talk and discuss about them more, maybe in other settings. I'm so sorry that I have to just briefly go through them. Actually, this course that I teach is actually a 40-hour course. So what I'm doing 40 hours, I'm doing it in 2 hours. So you can realize that I'm just going through, it's just touching the surface. It's not really going deep. So I hope that you have time to think about more deeply about how you can practice them. Okay, so this is a summary of what we just studied, okay, or just went through, and that there are 4 different practices. And in each practice, there are like for in care, it's about protection and provision, but there's also the challenge, and the challenge is we are from a high context culture. So we have to learn how to practice care at the same time thinking how we can do it in our high context culture. Then in presence, it's about attention, giving full attention to the other. And of course, the challenge is the perceived distance that we give through our verbal and non-verbal behaviors. Then we had inclusion. Inclusion is about embracing people, even though they are very different from us. And a challenge is to be able to practice intentional marginality, where we learn how to, because the person is so different, so we learn how to live life in that person's shoes, to better understand the person and to be able to embrace the person even more. And lastly is reciprocity. It's about host being a guest and guest being a host. It's about gift sharing. It's about role reversal, reversing our roles. And the challenge is for us to be humble, to have a poverty of mind and heart, so that our mind is open enough to receive insights from others, teachings, or even advice from others. And our heart is open so that we don't see the other as a competitor, but we see the other as our friend, as our brother and sister who is concerned for us. Okay. So basically, I have just one last task for you, and this is private, something that's personal. After listening for 2 hours, what are you challenged by? And as a result, what do you want to do about it? Okay. So maybe just for 5 minutes, just think through what I've shared, and then what is the Holy Spirit prompting you or nudging you within? And that's probably the one that's challenging you. And if the Holy Spirit's prompting and nudging you, then what are you going to do about it? Okay, so 5 minutes before we end this session. No need breakout rooms, just in your own journal, or write it somewhere, write a text to yourself, okay? Save it somewhere so that you can go back to it. I wish we can, I wish we are in a meeting physically, then I can tell you to tell the person next to you so that there's some kind of accountability. Yeah.
Or you could also share it with maybe your mentor if you want to be
That's also a
accountable.
good idea. Okay.
Or maybe someone that is a good friend of yours, in your life. I mean, wherever, in whichever setting, you could share something.
Yeah, you can also write private message to your mentor or a close friend.